Okay, good morning. We are continuing Hilchos Milah, the bracha section, Reish Samech A. We're in the middle of Aleph. Reish Samech A, the middle of Aleph. We're going to continue reading after the first Haggah. Right, there's the Shulchan Aruch, the Haggah, and then the Shulchan Aruch starts up again. I'm just going to point out there is a machlokas if a person says the bracha for himself. There's a concept in halacha, we never change the matbeah of chachamim. We don't change the nusach of the bracha. But there is a question if it's a little change. So some say lehikanes bivrito shel Avraham Avinu. That's quoted in the Shach. If the nimo is an adult and he's saying it for himself. If you're saying it for the child, then you say halach niso. But that's a machloket. Some say you should always say halach niso. Some say you switch depending on the situation. We have it. Some say we might see it if you have a couple children. You might say lahach nisam. That's another question. Some say, and then we actually have it lahalacha by gomel, birkas gomel. Just if you say it for somebody else, there is such a. We see that in the Gemara, but maybe by kalim also. Okay. And I just wanted to share another example. We spoke yesterday about, do you say le or al? We're going to have that again today. But just one great example is, we're all familiar, I just wanted to share it with al natilat lulav, right? That's the bracha that we say. So what's the reason? The Gemara actually says this. This is another exception to the rule. Normally we say over la'asiyatan. The reason why the Gemara says why al natilas lulav Sachem Zayin is because sometimes or usually you first do the mitzvah and then you do the bracha. Whenever it's built in that you need to do the bracha after the mitzvah, then you say al hatvila. It's lechatchila we do the bracha before. That's why you don't want to do it while it's on the table because then it's like before. So the minhag is we're machmer to lift up the lulav, but not lift up the hadasim. Or there's upside down, whatever. That's not all little details. But the interesting thing is really mi'ikar adin. You can say the bracha even if you pick up both. Chazal say dafka by netilas lulav. That's why the bracha is al, because you can still say it after you pick it up. Right? They say as soon as you pick it up, you already did the mitzvah. So that's the Beferish Gemara. And some say, especially before you do the na'anuim, that's also a chelik in the mitzvah. So that's also a kiyum of over l'asiyatan. And one short, famous story, thanks to Reuven, is with the Chafetz Chaim and with Rav Elchanan Wasserman. Rav Elchanan Wasserman, when he was learning in the Kola Yeshiva of the Chafetz Chaim, so he was away from his wife in a different city, and they had a baby. So Rav Elchanan says to the Chafetz Chaim, I think I need to go, or should I go back to my wife, to the baby for the bris? So the Chafetz Chaim asked, "Why are you the moel?" So it was because if you need to do the mitzvah, so then of course you should go. But just to be there, then it's travel time, and to be there and everything, it's bittul Torah. So it sounds like it was better not to. The only question that we had was who should say the bracha l'hachnisa. So back then it was obviously it was impossible. If you're not there, you're not there. Nowadays we have it could be Zoom, it could be phone, or that you can get texted exactly when is the Shas Milah. So that's food for thought. Who should say the bracha, the Aviyah Ben or the Sandik? Okay, that's more from yesterday. Let's continue inside. V'im hayu achirim omdim sham, omrim keshem shichnasol librit ken tachniseo l'Torah u'lechofa u'lemaasim tovim. So again, a couple different nusachs. You say tachniseo, hichniseo. You say shenichnas. What we're more used to. The Shulchan Aruch has Torah chuppah u'maasim tovim. the Sfardim will usually add the words ula mitzvot. Interesting enough. Avi ben o hamohel o echad me'am mevarech al hakos b'rei priya gefen. So then it's time to say the bracha, right? The Milah, the cutting is all over, it's all finished, and now we say the bracha b'rei priya gefen. So anyone can say it. Okay, it could be one of them. It can be machabit someone else. There's different minhagim. The shach, right, likes the nichnas because sometimes the father is not there. But anyways, it's a little plug. Whatever the minhag is, that's what you do. Or it's not a big deal. Whatever you do. V'yesh no hagim litol hadas biyado umevarich alav ulehariach. Now, so there's a custom. I believe this is only by the Sfardim. Is when right after Berei Priya Gefen, they say a bracha for something that smells good. Usually it's hadasim. Again, there's a couple. Well, let's just say out a few reasons why there is such a custom, and if it could be anything or just hadasim. Okay, yeah, I mean it could be anything, but there's a preference to hadasim. So what is it? So the Lavush says we smell it in order to help prevent us from fainting, from the watching the blood or whatever it is. So that's one reason. Another reason that's given is because of the bris milah, we get a tosefet neshama. Everyone there. It's a mitzvah to be there, and you benefit from being there. Everyone in the room gets a tosefet neshama, and this is symbolized by having besamim, smelling it. Okay, that's another reason. Another reason that's given, this is a midrash that's mentioned in Shibbolei Haleket, that when Avraham did the bris milah, so he the orlas that were there at the time, he made a mound and burnt them, and that smell from the burnt orlas that went up to Shemayim, and so Hashem smells that the burning. You want to call it incense or whatever it is, but from to have rachamim for us in the future. So when we're doing the mitzvah, it's the time to arouse rachamim from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from Avraham Avinu's Pasavos. It's a different reach, obviously, but one is supposed to remind of the other. Okay, as far as there's another minhag. There was another minhag that I don't know exactly where and when, but there were Jews who would use, or it's brought down, they would bring hadassim to the show. Right? They didn't have WhatsApp or texting in those days, or blasts of emails. So they would go around, collect, cut the hadassim from the trees and put them in the shuls, or by the doors of the shuls, when there's a bris in town. So this way, everybody would know, when you see hadassim by the door of the Beit Knesset, you would know there's going to be a Milah that day, the next day, however their custom was, or at least people would ask once they saw the Hadassim, they go, oh, when's the Bris Milah? So this way people will know to come. That's how they advertised. And then also it's Tzadikim are compared to Hadassim. Also, another reason is because Hadassim were already used for a mitzvah by Netilas Lulav. So you want to use, it's a common theme. Many times we like to reuse something for a mitzvah. We even mentioned that by what topic? What do you cut with? You cut with a stone? Do you cut with iron? So we know that it's a Jewish concept that you take something that's used, has kedusha, or used for a mitzvah. When it's applicable, you use it again. The Vilna Gaon just has a nice midrash, Rabbah, that Moshe was the one who did the Milah, and Aaron was the one who did the Priya, and Yehoshua was the one who gave the Nimo, baby or adult, the wine to drink. So we're going to see that now in a sec. The Omer Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kidesh yedid midbetin. So just you can look at the Taz. It just explains that who is the yedid midbetin, the precious dear one from the stomach or the womb. That's either Rashi says it refers to Yitzchak, or Beinu Tam says it refers to Avraham. And then V'chok b'she'ero, keep reading the bracha, it's referring to Yitzchak. V'tzeh tza'av chatam, he engraved this in his descendants, that's referring to Yaakov. Yedidot she'erenu zehan neshama. This is the neshama mishachat, to take us, to save us from the shachat. That's Gehenna. When you see there, when you read the whole bracha, you'll see. The minhag also is if the child is an orphan from one of the parents, so then you add, again, see your sitter, but basically you add the words began Eden. You mention the parent, began Eden. See the Nusach of your sitter. Not that it should happen, but if it does, that's where it is. The nohagim kishemagia lebedamaya chayi noten mehayayin beetzba'o lefi hatinok. Okay, so then here's the minhag that's mentioned, that when we say the pasuk bedamaya chayi, then the someone there, the moel, will take some of the wine from and dip it, or put a drop in the mouth of the baby. And the Vilna Gaon says this is keneged, or because we had. I was going to bring the chumash. I don't know if we all realize, but when the Chet Egel, when Chet Egel happened, so what happened right afterwards? When Moshe found out what happened, he burnt and pulverized the Egel. And then what did he do? He threw it out. And then, right, so that's what we learn. The Gemara discusses, you learn from there, not learn from there. It's in the Avodah Zarah, Memdalet, about getting rid of Isurei Hana. You throw it in the wind for it to go by. But anyways, you learn from there or not, that's the discussion. But you see, but the Gemara over there says that he sprayed it, he threw it, scattered it into the water that was there in a little river or whatever it was. I wouldn't say, I don't know, maybe a little thin little wadi, a brook, whatever it was. And then the pasuk says, "Vayashk et ha'am," and he gave it to the people to drink. So what did he do? So there it was to test. It depends. Some of the people, unfortunately, if they did avodah zarah with the egel, they got the death penalty. So some had witnesses and were warned, and some weren't. But for those who there was no witnesses, and there was no way to know who deserves the death penalty. So Moshe gave that water to everyone to drink, and that water would test just like a sota. And if they were guilty, then their stomachs would get bloated and they would die. So here it's the opposite. This is the dam of Milah, and it should be for life, chai, and it should be l'chaim, really. Okay, so that's what symbolic. Yeah, it's symbolic. Haga ukeshamo mevarich bracha zu rochetz techila yadav apiv kadei sheyavarech b'nekiyut. So if the moel is doing the brachas, he needs to wash his hands and just make sure that he doesn't have any blood all over or whatever. Just okay, it should be clean. Or there's private or covered areas.
When does the mevarich bracha then drink from the cup?
So when does he drink? He drinks after this after all this is happening at the shas of the Milah, the wine and the baby. Afterwards, we're going to say Bris Geffen. The Taz just says that you say B'damai Chayei. I mean, it's from the pasuk. We say it twice, but he says it also is symbolic of through the Milah he should be Zocha Techayim, both in Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. So that's the double lashon. Okay, Bet. I think we're on to Bet. Seif Bet. Im avia benhu mohel be'atzmo mevarich lamul etaben ledat harambam. So this we discussed really yesterday more. That is, do you say the bracha al hamila or lamul et haben? So the minhag for most Jews around the world is clearly we always say al hamila lo pluv. It's the Rambam who says lamul et haben. It's a machloket, but the minhag is for what should be done by the Sephardic poskim and the Rishonim as well. And so I'm not sure which is the preference of the Shulchan Aruch, but you decide for yourself. It's a little bit ambiguous if he's saying which is better. So you want to know what I did. So I had two of them. I cut myself, And I don't remember for sure what I did one of the times. I know one of the times I was planning to say Lamula Taben, like the Rambam. I asked my Rebbe, and I think that's the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. But again, you can read it either way. You can read the Bris Yosef. It seems like he doesn't. He's fine either way. And I was going to say Lamula Taben, but Al Hamila came out, and it was done already. But I remember that for sure happening by one, and the other one, I'm not sure what happened anymore. Yalkut Joseph, he says the minhag is just all everyone says Al Hamila, but it's not a clear psak one way or another. V'haga v'yesh chokim, and some argue and say v'chei noagim shelo lachalik, and the minhag is not to make a distinction. Doesn't matter who the moel is, we always say Al Hamila. Miu im birech lamul, but if you said lamul, or shebirech birkat lachniso lachud yatsa, it all works. If you only say Asher Kiddushem Sivana Lachniso and you leave out Lamul Taben, it was a good bracha, it was a good Milah, and that bracha also goes on the Milah. It's two brachos on the Milah. We have that a little bit by Tzitzis and Tefillin. But anyways, the point is that with B'diavad, the bracha does work and it counts as a bracha of a mitzvah. Again, depends if you hold it's a bracha of a mitzvah, a bracha of a shavach. But okay, this is the Ramah. And it doesn't matter b'diavad if you say Al Hamila or Lamula Taben, everyone agrees you're Yotze. It's just a preference. Even a Moel who would say Lamula Taben, it seems clear to me from the Ramah, you'd be Yotze b'diavad.
The Torah compares it to Birkat HaTeror. I think he means that if you said Nama and an H, you Yotze.
Right, because he also the Gra points out. You mentioned the Gra even by Pesach is a mitzvah. We paskin to say Al Bior Chametz, but it's a machloken in the Gemara, and the hilchata is the Gra says it. It doesn't say the hilchata only Al Bior Chametz. The hilchata means we prefer Al Bior Chametz, but levaer certainly does work. So again, that seems to apply all berachos and mitzvahs. Yeah, so this is what I said before, that lachniso is a tosefes bracha on the milah itself. That's just more appropriate for the father. And he says you should say, he says you say lachniso before the bracha of milah. And then he says, there it is. Berachas peros bekolo ve'eno kolo. I think the Gra saying you should always say lachniso first. I think so. Yeah, that was yesterday's topic. I think so.
But the general rule, it wasn't so clear from Sifes. If the father is the moel, does he say two brachos or one bracha?
If the father is the moel, he says two brachos. And then the question is, what's the minhag? Which one to say first? Gimel. Ger shemal kodem shenit gayer. So now you have a convert. And he was already circumcised as a baby. A lot of non-Jews get circumcised. Ger shemal kodem shenit gayer. And now he comes to convert, but he's already a mahu. Or vikatan shenolad keshehu mahu. Or a child who comes is born. A baby is born, a boy is born, and he is already mahu. There's no orla to remove. Right? We don't really see this nowadays, but there's no orla to remove. Keshematif imenu dam brit. So the halacha is, what do? We learned you have to do a tafas dambrit. You have to take a prick of blood from the tissue, the soft tissue, below the charitz, the sulcus around there, from where it was cut originally. So then einam tzrichim bracha. So there's no bracha to make because there's no milah to do. It's already there's no. Okay, so that could be one reason. The other reason is. It could be a suffix. When you think he's born mahul, this goes on back to the Gemara. It's a suffix. If you have to do a tafas dambris, we paskin. You do have to. There's a suffix. Maybe there's really orla, but there you don't see it. So whatever it is, it has a din of suffix. Anytime we say, anytime you have a baby that you think is born mahul, and there's no orla whatsoever to remove, so then we say it's a suffix. Maybe you have to do something, mi'ikar adin, maybe not. and so it's not Docha Shabbos, and you don't say a bracha. V'chein, androgynous, you don't know if what it is, a boy or a girl. So on the aver, right, the male has both, but you don't know if it's a male or female. You know what has both genitalia.
There's a pasuk that includes it. It's called Kol Zachar. It goes out this way.
Ein mevarchin al milato mipnei she'eno zachar vadai. So you have to do it, but it's midin suffik, and we never make a bracha in general on a suffik. So all these cases are the Grad points is these are all cases of suffix, or at least the second two. Haga aval kishachozrim al tzitzin hamaakvim hamila tzarich lach maakvin et hamila tzarich lachzor levarich kol habrachos. Now, what happens if you do the Milah and you realize, whoops, there's some foreskin left behind, and the baby's not going to be Nemo, he's not going to be Mahul, he's still an Ara. Mi'ikar Adin. So if it's a Mi'ikar Adin, if it's a Safek, or you're doing extra, to remove any tissue tags, whatever, so then you don't make a new bracha. But if the baby's still not, the Milah wasn't kosher, wasn't done right, it's 100% for sure Orla, left behind that it's Ma'ake, right? We learned what that is before already. So in that case, if you're still right then and there, you're still doing the mitzvah, just keep cutting it, fine. But let's say you realize this 5 minutes later, you put the baby away, you go back to check the baby in the next room, or you check the baby tomorrow, whatever it is, and you see, right, you finished the Milah, you had Hadas, you're done. As soon as that happens, it's mamish, this baby, the case is, he's mamish a mahul, he's not mahul, he's an arel still, and even though you're removing a little bit, it's just a little bit of tzitzit back. It'll be a strand, right? That goes up rov gova, most of the height. So then you have to say all the brachos again. But you don't say that because for rachamim, and that you said already, and that works. B'diavad.
So kol brachot,
Kol brachos, yeah.